Good morning and welcome to our 202nd weekly webcast. Now, if this is the first time you're joining us, welcome. If you've been with us before, welcome back. And so the way this call works is this is an AMA, meaning you can ask me anything. You can ask me business questions. You can ask me personal questions. You can ask me career questions, investing questions, anything you want. And I'm here to humbly help you take your career or your investment portfolio to the next level. Now, tomorrow we start our 5th annual one-year MBA degree program. We have one position left. There's 50 people in the class. It's a smaller class. And if you don't want to join for tomorrow, you can always join next year. We'll do another one next year. Let me get to your questions, though. Thank you. All right. So first up, I have got Omar, who wrote, "Hello, Chris. Hey, man. What do you think about REITs and how much can you make it in your portfolio, position size-wise?" Yeah, sure. So REIT, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, stands for Real Estate Investment Trust. And basically, it's a way for you to invest in real estate like you're buying a ticker, except the ticker represents a collection of real estate investments. Now, the way it works in most countries with REITs is that 90% of the operating profit must be paid out in terms of a dividend. So if you see a dividend on a REIT or any stock that's way too high, meaning 30%, please do your research because it could be a red flag that, number one, that dividend is not sustainable, and number two, the stock price or REIT price is so depressed because there is a material risk on the horizon, like a major lawsuit, etc. So I recommend buying, if you want to invest in real estate, first of all, buy your house that you live in or your apartment if you can afford it. I know times are tough. It's one of the best investments you'll ever make because you'll save a fortune on how much money you waste on rent over the years. If you don't have the bandwidth to be able to buy real estate, you can look into buying REITs, Real Estate Investment Trust. Just make sure that they're very well diversified in areas of the world you're comfortable investing in, to state the obvious. I can go into more detail if you want me to. Okay, next up, Omar wrote, on investing abroad, I think that investing in third world countries is risky because of a lack of transparency and corruption. What's your opinion on that? It all depends on the country. I wouldn't say that all third world countries are corrupt. Transparency could be an issue, though, because some markets don't have established stock market presences where governments regulate the markets. And you want to invest in countries, if you can, that have regulated markets where governments force you to prepare financial documents for investors to read. And I'll show you an example right now. So, for example, many years ago in 2012, I invested in the Facebook IPO. The ticker is Meta, M-E-T-A. And before investing in any IPO, including Porsche, which did incredibly well this morning in their first day of trading in Europe, but before you do it, what I want you to do is I want you to read the investment offering memorandum. Okay, and you can always go to the website in the country that the government mandates stock markets for. So in the United States, it's sec.gov. In Canada, it's CEDAR, spelt with a C at the beginning. And before you invest in any asset class, be it a private investment or anything, I want you to read the investment offering memorandum. They're almost always publicly available for you if you can't get access to one that don't invest. And these things are great because what you can do is they're written by investment bankers. I'm so sorry. I went a whole 5 minutes without dad humor, but no more today, I promise. They're written by investment bankers, okay, and lawyers, and they detail all the risks of the company. Now, in the United States, there's tons of lawyers, which is good and bad. It's good if you're an investor because all the major risks are highlighted in these documents. Again, go to sec.gov to read more about ticker Meta. Okay. All right. Next up, Omar wrote, what is your all-time favorite book on investing? Oh my God, that's so hard because they're all so theoretical. I'd probably say one written by Howard Shillett, who started CIFRA, which is a forensic accounting company that I was a big client of Howard's when I worked in the hedge fund industry, and I came up with a lot of short ideas because of him. But he wrote this book, Howard Shillett, called Financial Shenanigans. And basically what it does is it allows you to read, it teaches you to read financial statements like a good book. So you can find patterns in the data and watch out for warning signs, like if deferred revenue decreases on the balance sheet, which could be an indication that the company is going to miss next quarter. If you have more questions about that, please let me know. You can always go to my YouTube channel and do a search on the word book, because I've done tons of vlogs over the years on my favorite books, not just finance books, but books in general. Thank you. All right, next up question is, I'm a healthcare influencer on LinkedIn with 130,000 followers. Nice. And I must say that gave me more trouble than I thought, possibly due to outshining my seniors. Yes, meaning more senior people in your company. It could be a political issue. It could also be a regulatory issue and legal issue as well if you're giving health advice. Then you wrote here, if you were in my shoes, how would you manage that? Yeah. So every company has their own policy with respect to what you can disclose on LinkedIn, Twitter, etc. And so what a lot of people do that work at larger companies that like to opine or give their opinions on LinkedIn is right near their title, they'll write a disclaimer which says, opinions expressed are mine and not my firm's, something like that. And if you want, and especially if you work in a regulated market like healthcare or financial services, you can check with your boss or your compliance department, ask if you can post, and if you can, what disclaimers you need to have commensurate with disclaimers you have at the bottom of your emails as well. In terms of other people in your company being threatened by you, so to speak, it's risky, but I think it's a risk worth taking if you want to run your own company one day. Now, I did that years ago with my LinkedIn strategy, and I recommend everybody else do what I'm about to show you. And it's really easy, it's free, and it'll take your career to the next level, I promise you, if you follow through. So what I did was years ago when I worked in venture capital, what I would do is I would publish one article every single week on LinkedIn. I did this for 2 years, which means 104 articles roughly. And then the articles that did the best, meaning the ones with the most likes or comments or whatever, the ones I was most proud of, I put at the beginning of a book. Okay, so you can think about it that way too. Publish an article every week for 2 years, then put it together in a book. This book here is 6 inches by 9 inches. It really helped me materially with my career. You can do the same thing as well. Just publish this book after 2 years of LinkedIn articles. And maybe, Omar, you already have that with respect to those publications you have on healthcare that you put on your LinkedIn profile that 130,000 followers seem to like. Now, in order to put everything into a book, it's a free process, and I'm going to give you a link to download this template, okay? And there's 1 page of instructions as well. I don't ask for your email address or anything in this link I'm going to show you, but I think everybody should write a book. So what you do is you go to my website, which is harounmba.com/writebook, and that's all lowercase, okay, write book. And then when you're here, what you can do is you download this template. And if you know how to use Microsoft Word in a browser, you can publish this book. So there's 1 page of instructions here that will teach how to publish on Kindle, as well as Amazon Print and Audible. That's ACX for Amazon. And then my favorite Fiverr person is UltraCon22. She's in Bangladesh. She makes all my covers of my books. Please use her. There's a link for it. And you write your book here. You paste everything. And then you just right-click here and you select repaginate when you're in Microsoft Word. And next time you go to a job interview, and this has worked for thousands of my students, next time you go to a job interview or you meet with a potential customer or a networking meeting, you bring this book and you give it to them. And if you think that's too much work, then, and I say this with love in my heart, how badly do you want that job? It's a long-term strategy. It'll take you 2 years to do it. It will cost you nothing. But I think it's a great way to become a thought leader in a certain market and take your career to the next level at the same time. Okay. All right, next up, Kevin says he's one of my MBA students. Said, "Good morning from Lakeland, Florida. I hope and pray that you and your family are okay. I saw that the storm just got downgraded to, I think, Category 2, meaning 65-mile-per-hour winds. I hope and pray that you're okay, buddy. Yeah, especially those on the West Coast in Florida. Yeah." Manas from India wrote, "Good morning, my dear mentor, Chris, please. What a beautiful day, as promised. I published the Metaverse Avatar course this week. Congratulations. That's awesome. Sorry that I won't be able to stay, but but I'll watch the replay, Shirley. Thank you. Congratulations. Congratulations. I love the fact that you told us you were going to do it and you set a deadline date and you followed through. I love it. And most people that give up on their New Year's resolutions, they give up by the third week of January because they don't set a deadline date and they don't vocalize their goal. You did just that. You vocalized your goal. You told people about it and you set a deadline date. So I'm proud of you. Nicely done. You inspire me. All right. And then you wrote, thank you for everything. See you next week. The Wall Street vlog was dope on a rope. I loved it and gratitude ever. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. So I published the Wolf of Wall Street, a YouTube video on it, on lessons learned from the movie and how accurate is the Wolf of Wall Street. Please go to my YouTube channel, do a search for Wolf of Wall Street and check it out. And a great job to Matt Lacus, my Chief Creative Officer, for doing a great job editing that. Thank you. Next up, we got Solomon, who joined my channel. You see the trophy icon. Thank you for your support. I appreciate it. You wrote, hey, Chris, good evening from Saudi Arabia. Great to see you. Michelle, who's from Texas, who's joining my program, my Platinum program starting tomorrow. She wrote, good morning, Chris. Looking forward to tomorrow. Awesome. Likewise. Will you please explain what happened with the UK economy this week? Yeah. So what's happening is that the government in the United Kingdom is issuing a lot of bonds to try to prop up the economy. And what's also happening is the pound continues to underperform relative to the United States dollar. Now, this isn't just a UK thing versus the US dollar. It's a global phenomenon. There's been a flight to quality where a lot of global investors have been investing in the United States. As it is a flight to quality, it tends to outperform when there's dire economic conditions, just like it did back in 2008. It's also happening with respect to China. So the Chinese yuan hit a record low of 7.2 versus the US dollar. And so a lot of people are investing in the U.S. instead of other economies because, again, it's a flight to quality, and also because the United States government is more aggressively raising interest rates compared to other countries. Now, when it comes to China, China actually has been cutting interest rates because of the real estate crisis they've had there as well. And they've got to be very careful because you don't want to have civil unrest in China. Otherwise, you'll see Tiananmen Square Part 2. So it's a very fragile global economic environment right now. I recommend being diversified globally. And because you're based in the United States, I recommend that you go to treasurydirect.gov and put $10,000 into government bonds that have guaranteed return of at least 9.62%. And that percent resets every 6 months or so. So it's more of a flight to quality. The problem in the United Kingdom, though, is they've got inflation as well as anemic economic growth. Yeah. So times are really tough, and the culprit to blame for all this, of course, is Vladimir Putin for what he's doing. And the economic impact has been $2 trillion on the global economy, or at least it will be by early 2023, according to economists. Yeah. And the loss of life, obviously, is much more important than the economic impact. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Renvir wrote, hey, Chris, how can someone make a living with just the financial markets? Yeah. So the way to do that is to be incredibly long-term focused. I have a lot of students that reach out to me and say, I want to become a day trader and make a living off of that. And I caution you all, and I say this with love in my heart as I always do, don't do that. Because you can't make money longer term by being a day trader. Otherwise, we know the names of lots of successful day traders. They don't exist. And the issue is this. Each month has 20 weekdays. Okay, that means 20 trading days when the market's open. And the reason stocks go up or down within a short amount of time, like 20 trading days, is because of random events. Like what Putin might be saying from a saber-rattling perspective with respect to Biden, or trade wars between China and the United States because of Taiwan, whatever it might be, or because of what the Fed may or may not say with respect to interest rates, or a certain company might have had awful earnings, which drags the entire sector down. You can't be a short-term investor. You have to be long-term. As Warren Buffett said, the longer the view, the wiser the intention. And in my MBA degree program, I teach you how to become a long-term investor and how to save a lot of money. Now, if all you did, and I know times are tough right now, but if all you did was you maximized your retirement savings program every single year, so in the United States, you can invest about $20,000 tax-free every year. If all you did, and again, I know times are tough, if all you did was you took that $20,000 and you put it into the S&P 500, ticker VOO, ticker VOO, has very small fees, but it represents the 500 stocks in US markets. If that's what you did with the 20 grand every year, then what would happen is in 20 years, you'd have over $1 million from that passive investment, because the historical annual return on the S&P 500 is 10.5%. That's the average return over time. So that's $1 million. If your spouse did the same thing as well, she or he invested $20,000 per year for 20 years, then that's another $1 million. So now you're at $2 million. If you have a kid, let's say you get married today and in 2 years you have a kid, and you want your child to go to college 18 years later, like this guy, he just started Berkeley a couple weeks ago. I love him. I'm proud of him. Takes after his mother. But what you can do is you can save $15,000 to $16,000 per year in something similar to a retirement account called an educational savings account, or they call it a 529. Every country has this. Search on what is the 529 equivalent in your country. So if you put that $15,000 or $16,000 every year into an educational savings account for your child, then in 18 years, that'd be worth over $700,000. Okay. And if all you did was you put that in the S&P 500, meaning ETF VOO, you would have $700,000 to $800,000. So yourself, you have $1 million over 20 years. Okay. Your spouse, $1 million over 20 years, and your child, 700 or 800K over 18 years. So now your net worth is $2.8 million in 20 years. It takes time. There's no quick fix. You can't make a buck really quickly. A lot of hedge funds try to do it and they go to jail for it. Just be a long-term investor and do what I say. And I promise you it'll work. You won't make money every year. I promise you that. But as Warren Buffett said, the longer the view, the wiser the intention. And thank you for the question. All right. What you can also do if you want to scale that business is you could start your own investment management firm. It's something I teach about in my MBA program. And if you're a platinum student of mine, during our one-on-one meetings, in addition to making your LinkedIn profile amazing, which I do myself, not my staff, I can help you start any company as well. Okay, I've raised and managed over $1 billion in my career. I've made a lot of mistakes too, but I've had some minor successes I can humbly help you with. Let me get some coffee here. Trying to get my teeth whiter. So my dentist said I got to drink coffee like this for a while. Yeah. Because I'm a male model. Not at all. Although I will say, during COVID, a lot more women would look at me than usual. And no women ever look at me because I'm fugly. Freaking ugly. But I would get more looks because I had a mask on. And they couldn't see this giant thing here. Yeah. But when I took it off, the looks went away. All right. Next question is, how do you get a business idea? Yeah, so failing to plan is planning to fail. I know it's a cliche. It's kind of a cheesy thing to say, but it's true. You have to write a complete business plan first. And it's something I teach in the 3rd semester of my MBA degree program. Please write a thorough business plan before you start a company, because it will, first of all, save you money. It'll save your relationships with your loved ones, and it'll save your health as well. And the way you know you have a great business plan is if you finish the whole thing. And my business plan templates I provide you with in my MBA degree program in the 3rd semester, it's 150 pages long as part of my venture capital bootcamp. I don't want to put it on because my hair will get all messed up. Yeah. Okay. And ask yourself, too, when it comes to business ideas, this really simple question, which is, in 5 years, will this company or sector be more relevant than it is today? I'm just checking our streaming. Okay, we're good. Yeah. Always ask yourself that question. With any stock, too. In 5 years, will this company or this sector be more relevant or less relevant than it is today? It makes you longer-term focused, and it stops you from getting seduced by buying value traps, meaning stocks that are cheap. Quite often, they're cheap for a reason. Yeah. And remember, turnarounds don't work in tech. Well, once a decade, maybe. Okay. And let me get to my next question here. Next up, we got Sadio Diallo. Sadio, pleasure to meet you. First time I've seen you on the call. I hope you join us again. Thank you. So you wrote, "Hi, sir. Chris, please. How do I find out what you like?" So I pride myself on teaching my students how to fish instead of providing them with a fish. And I've got this great prop up here, which is a fishing rod, which I can't take down because the hook is stuck in the ceiling. But it's a prop to kind of impress upon you the fact that I don't want you to take advice from anybody to tell you exactly what stocks to buy. I always want you to do your own research because nobody is smarter than you. Yeah. And as Seth Godin said, you already have everything you need to build something far bigger than yourself. And I'll provide you with all the tools, fishing poles, arrows in your quiver, so to speak, in my MBA degree program so you can make great investment decisions and business decisions in general. I try to help you work smarter and not harder with respect to a lot of these tools I provide you with. Yeah. And don't ever take anybody's advice, please, when it comes to what stocks to buy. If you see somebody on Mad Money on television on Jim Cramer's show who speaks a lot gooder than us, whatever, don't take their advice, okay? Because quite often, they're amazing salespeople. That's how they got on TV. And that's what a CEO is. She or he is a great salesperson. The same thing with fund managers. Always do your own work. Otherwise, what will happen is this. When the market goes down, you'll panic and sell. And as Warren Buffett said, the New York Stock Exchange is the only store in the world where consumers sell stuff when it goes on sale. Okay. Next up, we got Digital Edwin. Great to see you. My son Dylan's favorite player was Edwin Encarnacion. He used to play for the Blue Jays. And congratulations to Aaron Judge for hitting number 61 last night in Toronto. And the classy Canadian fans gave him a standing ovation too. So Digital Edwin wrote, hey, Chris, I hope you're fine. Likewise. Greetings from Nairobi, Kenya. Great to see you. And we're building our next school starting next year in Kenya with one of my platinum students, Marin Karos. It's an all-girls school. It's in honor of her late great mother who's watching and so proud of her from heaven right now. You wrote, what's your view on Google data analyst course? I've not seen it, but the amount of data that Google provides is off the charts. If you can embrace that, you can be very successful in business. I look at Google Analytics when it comes to YouTube Analytics, and it's outstanding the amount of data they provide you with, especially for a company that's got a near monopoly. But anytime you can analyze data and find patterns, that's a great career. There's a lot of great courses out there. There's this one guy that teaches on Udemy. His name is Chris as well. His company's called Maverick. So take his courses on data analysis. They're great and much better than anything I could produce. Although what I am doing is exclusive to my MBA students. This January, anybody that signs up for my MBA program in the past or future will automatically get for free my programming courses. I'm going to teach you how to program in a visual way from scratch. We're going to start with Excel because in Excel you can record macros. Basically record yourself doing stuff in Excel and then change the code through what are called subs, which go into modules, and then modules go into projects as well. So we're going to start with Excel, then we'll move on to Visual Basic Excel, then we'll move on to a little bit more advanced stuff like Python, etc. And I was a programmer for years back in the 90s. I wear many hats. I am a nerd too, and I enjoy it. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Andre wrote, good morning, Chris and everyone. Great to see you, bud. And then Sadio has a follow-up, which is, my question can be strange, but it is important for me to understand that. Okay, you're referring to the previous question, yeah. And if you have follow-ups, please let me know. Moving on to Solomon, who wrote, what are the most important items to understand in investing and becoming a great investor? Yeah, the most important thing is the power of the time value of money. Right? And so I'll give you a great example. In the 1600s, the first inhabitants of this country, they sold the island of Manhattan to the United States government for, I think it was $20, about $20. And a lot of people say, oh my God, they got ripped off or whatever. People got ripped off for selling for only $20. No. If you put that $20 and you put it in the bank, or you put it in the S&P 500, which didn't exist back then, and you made 10.5% per year, or even let's say you made 7% per year, then the compound interest on that $20 from the 1600s until now, the compound interest would be a massive amount, a massive dollar amount, trillions and trillions of dollars, to the extent that it would be worth more than every building on Manhattan, every rare mineral, jewel, whatever on Manhattan, every car, every piece of real estate, and everyone's net worth on Manhattan. So the most important thing to understand when it comes to investing is thinking long-term and the power of the time value of money. Yeah. And there's other things too, like diversification, portfolio, and risk management as well, which I teach in my MBA program. Yeah. Yeah. And what I recommend is always, like, The worst thing you can do is you can go grocery shopping when you're hungry. What you want to do is you want to have money taken out of your paycheck every 2 weeks if you can, so it's out of sight, out of mind, and it's put directly into your favorite investments. Or you can buy ticker VOO, VOO, which is the S&P 500 after you do your research on it. Out of sight is out of mind. What you want to do is you want to spend what is left after saving instead of saving what is left after spending. Yeah. Okay, next up, Shivansh wrote, hey, Chris, what do you think about sales and trading as my career goal and the scope of being a derivatives trader in the long run, as I'm loving financial derivatives as a subject in my college? Awesome. And in the fourth semester of my MBA program, in FA 44, Finance Accounting Semester 4, Class 4, I have a 30-hour elective on that topic, derivatives, etc. Yeah. So what I would say is that I think that sales and trading is going to be disintermediated and replaced with technology in the long run, especially the sales trader role. And I can go into more detail on that if you want me to. I think that if you're going to be a derivatives trader, I would kind of look to be a derivatives investor and longer term focused. And when I say longer term, when it comes to derivatives, I mean a minimum of 3 months, because a lot of options expire in 3 months, so to speak. Yeah. Okay. Next up, and by the way, I have a vlog coming out. It's going to be 45 minutes. Comes out probably in a couple of weeks. We're working very hard on it now, which is an analysis of the movie Wall Street. And I talk about derivative trades and sales and trading and the buy side and sell side in a lot of detail in that vlog. It'll drop in a couple of weeks on my YouTube channel. Thanks. All right. Next up, Alejandro wrote, hello, Mr. Chris. Hey. First of all, let me tell you, you're my idol and you're awesome. No, thank you. And I humbly hope you can turn your idol into your rival. Yeah. Thank you for that. And there's only one idol for me, and that's God, of course. Yeah. Thank you. God bless you. I love you. Next up, Zoralina, who's my silver MBA. She just got married in Nova Scotia. She's from France originally. She lives in Ontario. She has 2 cats named Mimi and Mumu, and she has a crepe company that she's selling now to a private equity firm. But Zoralina said, good morning, Chris. Good to listen to your webcast. How is Project Magu doing? Thank you for asking. I appreciate that. So for those of you, I'll make this quick. I promise you, I've showed you before. For those of you not familiar with Project Magu, one of my students from my first platinum program, and I met him at a Udemy conference named Vital. He's from Rwanda. And so I went to Rwanda with him in the summer of 2021. This is where I met him in Berlin when I was younger. And we built a school there. And so we're putting the roof on right now. We are teaching students right now as well. And all we have left to do is putting the solar up on the roof and then building the rest of the Ella. That's my parents. My parents are Arabic. When they can't remember something, they say Ella, Ella. And then we're gonna put the Raspberry Pi computers in as well, and it's all gonna be locally sourced. Yeah, and then next year, as I mentioned earlier, we're gonna be putting starting a school in Kenya. Yeah, and that's where the profits go from what I do. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Eric wrote, "Can you learn a lot about how companies work by doing forensic accounting?" Yeah, you can. You got to know the basics of accounting and finance first before doing that. But if you want to look into forensic accounting, here's a shortcut for you. Just go and buy a book called Financial Shenanigans by Howard Shillett. That will really help you get started and find patterns in the data, so you can look to short companies if that's something you're interested in, companies that are cooking the book, so to speak, or draining the pipeline. And I can talk more about how companies how cheat and what forensic accounting is and what to look for. If you want me to, just let me know. Thank you. All right. And Eric, who's in my silver program, wrote, as far as investing in third world countries goes, Rwanda seems like a good place to invest. Yeah. I was amazed with the economy when I went there. I do criticize the Chinese government for being communist a lot. But one thing I'll say about the Chinese government is that they do a pretty darn good job of building roads and infrastructure in countries where they're taking natural resources from. And so it really felt like a developed country, like a much better than I thought. It wasn't even that hot when I was there. It's right in the equator. I went last summer too. I loved it. It was great. Yeah. And when you go to the airport in Rwanda, it's like you're playing Call of Duty, because you walk through, not from a military perspective, but there's you can see these massive screens and see right through yourself in terms of if you're carrying something, a weapon, or if there's heat sensing as well from a COVID perspective. Yeah. And we're trying to get Paul Kagan to cut the ribbon on the school. I don't know if he'll say yes, but we're trying. Yeah. Okay, next up, Adil wrote, hey, Chris, hey. How would you recommend going about finding a good CPA? Yeah. So when it comes to accountants, and by the way, I don't want anybody here to ever do your own taxes. Don't use software. Don't do any of that stuff. Okay. If you're a student, maybe do it if you don't have revenue or income. I recommend getting an accountant to do everything for you. And the reason I say that is because the tax laws change all the time. And you can get a lot more tax benefits if you have an expert doing it for you, and they can also keep you out of trouble if they're good. In terms of how to find a great accountant, there's no Yelp for accountants. There's no centralized repository online to help you find a good accountant. The best way to find an accountant is to ask your rich aunt or rich uncle or friends at work that are successful, etc., and ask them to refer their accountant to you. Don't do it a month or two before tax season, because obviously they won't have time. But you're doing them a favor as well by asking them, because the CPA or the accountant will do a much better job for them if they get more business. Yeah. Okay. And my dad used to tell me, he said, Chris, don't ever take advice from somebody not successful. So make sure you talk to somebody successful and ask them who their accountant is. Yeah. All right. Next up, Alejandro wrote, Ray Dalio. And for those who are not familiar with Ray Dalio, he is the founder of Bridgewater, which is basically the largest hedge fund in the world. Has over $100 billion in assets under management. And a lot of people are fearful by what he's saying about the economy right now. Please keep in mind he's more of a stock picker and less of an economist. Okay, don't let economists scare you ever, because there's a famous quote which I'm going to butcher, which is, 25 economists have predicted 25 of the past 17 recessions, something like that. Yeah. And Ray Dalio, so he wrote this book called Principles on how to manage people, etc. The reality is this, and I've had friends that have worked for him, okay, at his hedge fund in Connecticut. The reality is, when you work at his firm, the yearly turnover is about 40%, apparently, meaning employee turnover. And also every single meeting is recorded, except in the bathroom. That's right. Yeah. So, yeah. But you wrote here, Ray Dalio says that the market won't grow up during the next 10 years. Even worse, the USA market is dying. What do you think about it? And what do you think about him? Well, you know my thoughts on him as well. I think he's a great investor, by the way, as well. And he's gone through some personal issues in the past year, and I do feel badly for him. In terms of his thought process on the U.S. market dying, no way. No, U.S. is a flight to quality. And look, I'm a Canadian, and I do have dual citizenship, but I'll call a spade a spade. U.S. is still a great place for innovation. It's a great place to start a company as well. The U.S. government keeps printing more dollars, which is, it's troublesome, but every country is doing it as well. And the U.S. is still seen as a flight to quality. The second you start seeing no innovation coming out of the United States, meaning no great companies are being founded, then I'd start to get worried. But until then, I'm not worried at all. Yeah. And people have been calling for the downfall of the United States for decades as well. I don't think it's going to happen. Yeah. A lot of people get upset when I say that. I'm just being objective. And when you model financial companies and you try to value companies, you have to use what's called the risk-free rate to discount capital from the future. And the risk-free rate most people use in the world now is the U.S. government rate, because the United States government is the last company, so to speak, on this planet that would ever go bankrupt. It's all relative. Yeah. And look, we have our issues here in the United States, but I'm bullish on the United States in the very long run from an innovation perspective. Yeah. Okay. Unless it leans too far to the left, which worries me sometimes. I think we're okay, though. Okay, next up, Adil wrote, should we use an attorney to create a business entity, or would you recommend a LegalZoom type website? Yeah, so LegalZoom is amazing. I'm not sponsored by anybody. I never will be. I'm always pure and true to my students from a transparency perspective. I use LegalZoom. I think it's great. It's a great way to get access to a lawyer. You can talk to a lawyer for a half hour every month for $30, right? And you got to do like a 6-month contract. Might be $35 or $40 now. I think it's fantastic. Yes, please register your company before you start it. Okay, always. Otherwise, what can happen is when you become successful, people will come after you and they'll try to take everything. It is what it is. And it's one of the problems with the United States, too many lawyers. But there's a lot of checks and balances in place to protect investors. But when you start a company, if you don't register it and you're successful, people will come after you. It happens all the time. It's happened to me as well. Yeah. Okay. Plus, let's say, God forbid, something happens at your company that you start. Somebody falls down. You can get sued as well and lose everything. Okay, you want to register your company name, please, and talk to a lawyer as well. I will never give legal advice because I'm not a lawyer. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Charles wrote, "Good morning, Chris and all. How are you? Florida is experiencing the effects of the Hurricane Ian, including the loss of power, but I'm happy to be with you." Yeah. And I haven't seen any loss of human life yet. I've been monitoring it pretty closely. And I'm praying for everybody in Florida. I think about 2 million people are without power right now. Yeah. And then Andre wrote, "Good morning, Chris. Good morning, Andre. Hope all is well. Likewise. Where can I go to schedule a meeting with you? In the last 10 months of the MBA program, I've excelled as an entrepreneur and in my career." Yeah. If you're in the Platinum program, what you can do is you go directly to my website. I'll show you this really quickly. And I scaled it as well so that all 5 classes can access it the same way. So if you're in Platinum, just go to one of these links here and just log in, okay? And that's how you get a one-on-one. Yeah. And then I think we have one position left for it's probably sold out for today. But if you want to get one-on-ones and you're not in a Platinum program, you can always join next year. And thank you for your interest. Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. Next up, Rita, who's one of my MBA students. He started in June. He's from Melbourne. Great guy. He wrote, "Good day, Chris. Hope you are well. Great to see you. Great to see you." Moving on to P. Hatz, who wrote, "Hey, Chris, long time no see. Great to see you again. Welcome back." You wrote here, "I hope you're doing well. Likewise. I'd like to ask you a question regarding a new job I just got 3 days ago. Congratulations. What are some tips you can give me in starting as a business advisor?" First of all, let me tell you about the new job. It's in commercial banking. Yeah. So, and I'll make this a generic answer to apply to everybody. When you have a new job or you're in a new department in a company, in the first 2 weeks of you being there, I want you to set up a ton of one-on-one meetings with people in your department and other departments as well. Because you're the new kid in town and you can network a lot. Kind of like I was telling my son, Andrew, who started Berkeley, a month ago, I said, make as many friends as you can in the first 2 weeks because those are your friends for life. So when you're the new kid in town, so to speak, or new employee, you've got that 2-week window of opportunity to network like crazy. I would do that aggressively. And then you wrote, what are tips regarding your job in commercial banking? Let me know exactly what the role is, if you're doing underwriting or if you're doing sales on it or operations, and I can provide my humble thoughts. Yeah, thank you. And congratulations on the new gig. Okay. And Rita wrote here, "Chris, my heart felt for the people of Florida. May God bless them all." Amen to that. Yeah. Likewise, I said a prayer this morning too. Yeah. And Andre, good morning. How are you? All right, give me 1 second, guys, here. Okay. All right, next up, Wendy wrote, "Hey, Chris." Hey, Wendy. "Thank you for recommending A Promised Land by Barack Obama. I'm enjoying the audiobook. It's wonderful. And look, I didn't vote for Obama, but I love him. I think he's a wonderful humanitarian. He's a great guy, and he's probably the best public speaker on earth today. And so for those of you that want to improve your public speaking and learn about history as well, listen to Obama's book. It's called A Promised Land. It's 30 hours long. Don't read it. Listen to the Audible version because he narrates it himself, and you can pick up some public speaking tips by listening to him. And he's very self-deprecating as well. And so in the book, he mentioned that at one point he was in his late 30s and he was a failed politician. That's what he called himself, with almost a failed marriage. But it's very inspiring what he's done. Yeah. And again, I do respect him a lot. And part 2 of that book should be coming out pretty soon as well. And I love how he sticks it to Putin as well in that book. Yeah. Next up, Janice, which is also a great growth mutual fund in Colorado. Janice wrote, "Hey, Chris, I'm about to start my first job at a big automotive company. Congratulations. I already know that I want to move to the United States. Do you have any recommendations on how and when to mention that I want to relocate to the United States?" Yeah. So what I recommend doing is this. So if anybody wants to move to a different country in the long run, what you can do is this. In the country where you live right now, work for a company whose headquarters are in the country you want to move to. Make sure it's a big company. And if you do exceptionally well in 5 or 10 years, you'll get promoted a number of times. And eventually, you'll get to a point where in order to make vice president, they have to promote you and relocate you to the mothership, which could be in the United States or wherever the country's headquarters are. These companies have massive balance sheets and budgets when it comes to legal expenses. They will find a way to get you a visa as well. And the way it works in the United States is technically the lawyers have to argue that what you can do, no American can do, which is kind of bogus because Goldman Sachs did that with me as an economist, and I don't know the difference between preferred stock and livestock. But anyway, once you do well, they'll take care of all that. And Goldman tried to do that for me as well with my green card, and they were great about it. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next up, Rubina wrote, and Rubina is from Pakistan. She lives in the United Kingdom. She's wonderful. She's in my platinum program. She wrote, "Hi, Chris and wonderful MBA team. I pray everyone is well. Likewise. And it's great to see you as always." And then you wrote, "Can you please explain, could I please ask you to show me where I can find the business plan model template? It is an Excel link." Yeah. So what you want to do is inside the MBA program, just go to E31. That's Entrepreneurship Semester 3, Class 1. And I've set it up also so that you can do a quick search. And I'll show you how that works, okay? All right. So if you go here to, let's actually go to where you buy my courses. Give me 1 second here. All right, so right here, where you buy my courses or watch the lessons, up here you can search for anything. So if you search for, say, I don't know, venture capital, okay, what you can do is you'll see here that it is provide. I'm buying myself time here. It's taking a second to load. The silver, gold, and platinum MBA. So you click here, whatever program you're in, and then what you do is you click here, okay. And then it'll take you directly to where the lecture is. If you purchased it, you'll see a video here. Yeah, and it'll tell you exactly when we cover it live in class. And this here was a case study, I guess, on Sequoia we did. Yeah. All right, let me go back to conserve bandwidth. All right, let me just go here to the home page, and I'll go back here to Wirecast. Okay. All right. Next up, Sadio wrote, "Thank you for the explanation. I will finalize my MBA in your platinum course in order to get the basics. Appreciate your answer." Thank you. No, appreciate it. Thank you. Next up, Ajay wrote, "Your study props are super cool. Yeah, but when you meet me, I'm a tiny human being. I'm a really small man." Yeah. Dude, I know I've used that joke before, but I just love it. It's just so dumb. Yeah, like me. Your study props are great. Thank you. It makes it easy to understand the concepts. Thank you. It's fun. Yeah. And whenever you guys give a presentation, please use props, even if you have to order an expensive one on eBay. Because after the presentation, you can sell it back on eBay. So it's like a 5 or 10% restocking fee, so to speak, including fees. Because people are very visual. There's a reason why Instagram is killing it. And when you were younger, remember you watch your buddies giving presentations in school, you remember the props they brought in for show and tell, but you don't remember what the teacher said. This stuff works. Yeah, and it's fun too. It's a more funner way to learn. Okay. Next up, Anirban wrote, "Hey Chris, hope you're doing well." Likewise. "In the journey to become a better version of myself, how do I stop feeling self-loathing at little things going wrong, and how do I stop ruminating over everything?" Yeah, a couple things. Number one, you just got to tell yourself, and I'm going to quote Tony Robbins here. I've met him. He invests in one of my companies. He's a great guy. He said, "The past does not equal the future." So what's happened in the past, don't ever think about that. It's done. And only focus on what you can control in the future. And stop self-sabotage, number one, by changing what you think of yourself. Okay, you got to change the confidence you have in yourself by saying these simple words. And this is an exercise for everybody to do right now, please. I want you all to get a piece of paper, okay, or open up Microsoft Word or something. And I want you to write this down. I don't care what people think of X. And what I want you to do is I want you to fill in the blank for X 10 times. For example, I don't care what people think of my choice of career. I don't care what people think of the way I look. I don't care what people think of the way I dress. I don't care what people think of where I live. I don't care what people think of my orientation. I don't care what people think of the fact that I'm a 50-year-old man-child and I love playing video games still. And I'm still playing Red Dead Redemption Part 2. It's the best game ever. So just do that. And I promise you, it's therapeutic as well. I don't give a damn what people think. And I'm not saying being rude or disingenuous, but if you tell yourself, I don't care, it's the subtle art of not giving a darn. If you tell yourself, I don't care what people think, then and only then will you reach pure happiness or nirvana in your life, so to speak. And you stop self-sabotage. Because the reality is people are not thinking of you. And I'm not saying that in a mean way. I say it with love in my heart. They've got their own problems. They're thinking of other things. And you just got to tell yourself, I don't care. And the best entrepreneurs in history and authors, they're like that as well. For example, Oprah Winfrey, she didn't give a damn that everybody thought she'd never make it as a broadcaster. She didn't care. She kept doing it. And all you got to do is be right in business one time. Steve Jobs failed a bunch of times before he was successful. Same thing with Bill Gates. He started a company called Trafo Data before Microsoft, which failed. Elon Musk failed a lot. He was basically bankrupt almost in 2008. Barack Obama in his book, as I mentioned earlier, he mentioned that, he was in his late 30s and, he was a failed politician and his marriage was falling apart. He didn't care. He didn't care. Abraham Lincoln lost his first 26 elections. He didn't care. And the best entrepreneurs are like that as well. They just don't give a damn what people think. And so in order to eliminate self-sabotage, you just got to tell yourself, I don't care what people think of me. I just don't care. Yeah. Now, in my MBA program, what I also do is I provide you with a schedule so you can accomplish 10 times more every day. And some of your goals that you write at the top might be along the lines of, I don't give a subtle damn what people think of me. And repeat that to yourself daily. And then and only then will you live your life in your own terms. Yeah. Okay. All right, next up, we got Galileo. Very intelligently written with the number 1 there. I like it. And thank you for the love and comments you had on my vlogs this week. Galileo wrote, hey, Chris, I work at FANG, and I'll eventually make an exit at some point. I'm considering setting up a family office. What would be an ideal business structure for that? Yeah. So you definitely want to talk to a lawyer first to see if you should set up an LLC or a different type of structure. They would know much better than I would. Yeah. Now, if what you want to do is manage money for wealthy people, the going rate, the way it works in private wealth management, is you take 1% of the money you manage every year. So if you manage $100 million, you have $1 million in fees every year. Just make sure you're objective and you don't just offer financial products from one investment bank, so to speak. And if you have follow-up questions, please let me know. But it's really going to come down to networking as well, which is what we teach at the beginning of the MBA degree program, because your network is your net worth. And relationships are always more important than product knowledge. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Ajay wrote, any advice for aggressive job seekers in terms of filtering the companies? Yeah. So whenever you see a job opening online and you apply, you literally have a 1 in 250 shot of getting that job. It's hard. And the person that gets that job knows somebody at the company. So those are the rules. So what you have to do is you have to network aggressively, get a list of the top 10 or 20 companies you want to work at, and set up a ton of informational meetings. And I teach you exactly how to do that in my MBA program. Yeah. Your network is your net worth. Yeah. Okay. All right. And then Da wrote, hey, Chris, enjoying your courses. You rock. Thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you for the support as well. I see you got the trophy icon. You joined my channel. Thank you. And Galileo, thank you so much for that Singapore donation of thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. And I'll go directly to Project Magu. God bless you. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to Shavant, who wrote, do you know any perfect finance profiles with work-life balance and high pay? Yeah. So probably the best finance career you can have, where you can leave any company you want to and take your clients with you and have a good work-life balance, is private wealth management. And basically it means kind of like a stockbroker for rich people, except you take it to the next level, meaning you help manage all aspects of their net worth. You help them diversify into real estate, bonds, stocks, commodities, etc. And the way it works is you get, as I mentioned earlier, you get 1% of the amount of money you manage for them. You get 1% of that every single year as a fee. And it's a worthwhile fee paying as well if you're wealthy, because the good private wealth managers can save you a fortune in terms of lower commissions, or helping you to buy ETFs instead of mutual funds where the fees are a ripoff, etc. And private wealth management, as I mentioned earlier, is portable, meaning if you work in PWM or private wealth management at a firm like a Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley or UBS, whatever, you can pick up and take your clients with you whenever you want to go to another firm, or start your own firm as well. Yeah, it's the best way. Yeah, and you get to network and meet cool people as well. Yeah, and it's really sad to say, but in the next couple of decades, there's going to be the biggest generational transfer of wealth in history. So the active money management business from a private wealth management perspective is going to be red hot. Yeah. And if you're in America, start your business in Florida. Okay. All right. Next up, Prashant wrote, hey, Chris, you quoted that when you started your career in finance, it was hard to learn financials and formulas, but you not only learnt, but became highly successful as well. What is your success mantra, please? No. And I've made so many mistakes in my career, please. My success is that, my humble success, it's kind of like Michael Jordan, although he's way better than me. He said, I failed over and over again in my career, and that's why I succeed. And so for me, I remember the first time I took accounting. I was an undergrad. It was 1991 in Canada, and I got a D. And I thought, oh my God, my life is over. The reason I got a D was because I was memorizing it. Don't ever memorize accounting and finance. Understand it. Rearrange the formulas as well, and just enjoy the process. And if you understand something, you'll remember it forever. Memorizing is bogus. It's for biology students only. Don't do it. Understand things. So, for example, the way I teach in my MBA program is I use a lot of props. I have this balance scale to teach you how a balance sheet works. So a balance sheet is basically assets equals liabilities plus equity, okay? And assets is stuff you have equals liabilities plus equity, meaning who owns that stuff, a bank or somebody else. So if this is a car, it's a $20,000 car that I own, right? It's a Toyota, I own it. Well, I own part of it, okay? So the $20,000, assets equals liabilities plus equities. 20,000 has to equal 20,000. So $20,000 asset equals, let's say the Bank of Toyota gave me a loan for 10 grand. Okay, so that's liabilities, 10, plus 10 grand in equity. Equity means ownership. And if you rearrange that formula, what is my equity or ownership in this car? Well, we know assets equals liabilities plus equity. So equity equals assets minus liabilities. So my ownership in this car is $20,000, the asset, minus the 10 grand I owe to the Bank of Toyota. So 10,000 equals 10,000. So rearrange equations as well. And that's a simplistic example, but we do a lot of that in my MBA program. Really understand things. And once you understand it, it's so much more fun, and you'll remember it forever. Yeah, you don't need to memorize ever. Yeah. Okay. Mark, how are you? Mark goes by Satones. Is that really you, Satones? Because Satones, you usually type all caps. Oh, there you go. You're all caps in the follow-up there. Okay, good. So Mark, who's my platinum program from last year, he's from Detroit. Great guy. I call him Google. He knows everything about everything, and he calls me Bing because I don't know as much as him. I told him to call me Bing. Mark wrote, our CEO, Andrew, we'll be happy to talk about solutions and how we can address the challenges of getting your payload to space pitch deck review, mission design reviews, and sourcing launch. Yeah. Okay, so I understand now, and I know it's you because you must have pasted that. A CEO of a company is asking you a question, yeah. And so Mark's business is basically, he's like the next Elon Musk. His long-term vision is mining rare minerals off of asteroids, which is going to happen, and it's brilliant. Tell you what, Mark, why don't you ask me during office hours today for platinum and gold students at 11:20 until 1:22 hours. And then we can do a Zoom. Ask me at the beginning, and I'll focus on you during that Zoom at the beginning. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, great to see you as always, brother. All right, next up, Eric, who's in my silver program, wrote, in China, many tall buildings need to be torn down because they are flimsy and unsafe. This will likely be an enormous cost. There are videos of buildings swaying in low winds and facades peeling. Yeah. Yeah, and I remember years ago when I invested in China, I met with it was a CFO, I think, of United Technologies, UTX. They make Otis elevators. And I asked him at the time about his thoughts on China. And he said, Chris, in the next 5 years, more buildings are going to be built in China than the cumulative total of all buildings built in every country since the beginning of time. That was the mother of all investment theses at the time, leading up to the 2008 Chinese Olympics, of course. Yeah, it looks like there's a lot of shortcuts we're taking there. I didn't realize a lot of them are swaying. And every year in China, they deploy and they create the equivalent electricity grid infrastructure of the United Kingdom. It's unbelievable. And now we understand why commodity prices are way higher today than they were a couple decades ago. Yeah. Okay. Next up, KJ wrote, is it necessary to have an MBA to start a business? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. An MBA is not like a law degree or medical degree. It's not a professional designation at all. You know, the most important thing you can learn is how to network. And in an MBA, anyway, they teach you stuff that's not relevant in the real world. You know, traditional, it's why I do what I do. And it's why I wrote this book as well. I was so frustrated after I graduated from business school. You know, I talked to all my buddies who went to other decent business schools like Harvard Business School, HBS, 2/3 HBS is BS. I talked to them and I was like, can you believe they didn't teach us the following in business school? They didn't teach us how to sell. They didn't teach us how to interview. They didn't teach us how to present. They didn't teach us how to manage other people's money or manage our own money. They taught us how to manage other people's money only. They didn't teach us how to get customers. They didn't teach us the most important things in business. And that frustrated me, which is why I wrote this book and why I started this MBA program. In fact, in my MBA degree program, we have a lot of people that are graduates from the top 10 MBA schools in the world, Ivy Leagues, etc. And they say they learn more in 1 month in my program, humbly, than they did in their entire MBA degree program. And the cost of my MBA degree program is literally the same as 1 or 2 hours at a traditional MBA school. And there's a money back guarantee with my program. Yeah. So no, you don't need to have an MBA from a traditional school to start a company. Yeah. And ask anybody that graduated an MBA, so do you know how to start a company now? Like, they literally don't cover that. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Dan wrote, who do you see leading the VR headset market in the next 5 or 10 years? So right now, Facebook has put the most money in with Oculus. And I've got it down here somewhere. Oh, here it is. Yeah. But they've got tiny share of a tiny market right now. Like, there's 15 million of these things that have been made. That's it. That's nothing. Billions of people are on the internet, right? I think the company that's going to crack it is probably Apple. Now, I've seen patents from Apple, and anybody can just do a search on Apple patents, okay? Apple has a version of this product coming out, which is going to be much, much smaller. Version 1 comes out in January 2023. Version 2 comes out in 2024. I think if anybody's going to figure out it might be Apple. And I'm hedging myself there a bit because I know that Facebook is all in on this. Heck, they renamed the company from Facebook to Meta for a reason, Metaverse, right? And also that they know they're going to get broken up, and Facebook's going to be one of the companies broken up by the Department of Justice. But I think Apple's probably got the best shot. No one's been able to figure it out. Microsoft's strategy with HoloLens has been just awful, too expensive. It's not even a consumer product anymore. It's more industrial. But let me show you the patents on Apple, okay? And this is a great way to do research on companies to understand what is coming in the pipeline. So let me just do a search here on Apple VR or AR patent. Okay. All right. And let me go here to images. Here we go. This is it here, okay? But the mock-up is going to look something like this. Now, in patents, they don't do stuff in color like this. It's more just diagrams like this. But this is what it's going to look like. Something like this, okay? And this here is Gen 1. This apparently, according to people familiar with the matter, is coming out in January. And then next year, they'll have a smaller version as well. And the problem is that you get really, really dizzy using these products. But there has to be a market for them longer term once people figure out how to use them without getting dizzy. And so you don't look like a glass hole, which is Google Glass, which is way ahead of its time. But imagine this. Imagine going to a foreign country and you're talking to somebody and they're speaking a different language. And you've got these glasses on. And you can see exactly what they're saying, close, like subtitles. And they have the same pair of glasses on as well. It's unbelievable, but they really have to work on creating something like this where you don't get dizzy. Also, when you're in a VR environment, meaning not AR, everything looks realistic. Like when you play FIFA or all these great EA sports in the games, everything looks realistic except for faces. Nobody has nailed faces. I was watching Rogue One the other night just to get ready to watch the Andor series, which rocks. And they had faces of people from the original Star Wars movie that were digitally recreated. And it looks so fake. Nobody has nailed this yet. Yeah. And I think if Zoom just renamed themselves to Zoom AR Incorporated, the market cap would double. But they got to figure out how to use, of course, AR within Zoom as well, or VR. Yeah. All right. All right. Next up, I have got here. Rubina wrote, "How is the situation with the hurricanes over there? Please keep safe." Yeah. We're not feeling it here on the West Coast, but in Florida, I know it's pretty bad. It's not as bad as people expected, though. I haven't heard of any loss of life, thank God. I know that a boat went missing with 20 people. I hope they found it. But the storm actually got downgraded to Category 2, which means winds are no longer above 120 miles per hour. They're above 65 miles per hour. Yeah. Alexa, what's 65 miles in kilometers?
65 miles is about 104.6 kilometers.
So still pretty fast. Yeah, like highway speed. Yeah. Okay. And give me 1 second here. Next up, Eric wrote, I've been watching a lot of videos about the persecution of Falun Gong practitioners. In America, we have spies who are recording Chinese people practicing to send videos. Yeah, I don't know anything about that. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Next up, and I'm probably not the right person to ask that sort of thing, but thank you for the question. Okay, Prashant wrote, you have a very big fan base here in India. Thank you. We love your courtesy when you share your experiences, and that is also for free. God bless you. Keep enlightening us. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you. And for those of you that have not been to India, please go. It's a beautiful country. And for those of you that go to Indian restaurants all over the world, I know tikka masala and tandoori chicken are good, but you have no idea how good dosa is. When you guys go to Indian restaurants, please ask for dosa. I'm begging you. It's the best food you'll ever eat. And I had dosa the first time at the airport. I know airport food in Mumbai. I went to Punjabi Grill. And then I did the same thing when I was in Delhi at the airport. It was so good. It's like Krispy Kreme donuts fresh the first time you had that. Thank you very much. God bless you for those comments. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Next up, Mosny wrote, "Hi, Chris. Hope you're well. Likewise. Good to see you. Thank you. Thank you." Okay. Rita, who lives in Australia, He wrote, the Australian market valuation has dropped 4%, driven by declines in every sector, especially materials. Yeah. And the Australian economy is heavily dependent on China for material exports, of course. Yeah. And natural resource-rich economies like Canada, Australia, and Brazil, their currencies are very much tied to the price of commodities. And so when the price of commodities go down a lot, so do those three aforementioned currencies as well. Yeah. Okay. Now I've got Mark from Detroit wrote, Wall Street, one joke, preferred stock. Okay, good, you got it. If this guy owned a funeral parlor, nobody would die. That's right. And we're working hard on that right now. Editing that video. It's going to come up soon. It's going to be a masterpiece. And that's kudos to Matt Lacus. Yeah, my chief creative officer. He got Best Actor for that movie too, Michael Douglas, 1987. Yeah. All right. Next up, Rita, who's from Pakistan, lives in the United Kingdom, wrote, in the last 12 months, the market is down 13%. Looking forward, earnings are forecast to grow by 6.6% annually. Yeah, and the average company, I think, in the S&P 500 historically grows at close to 15% annually as well. Yeah, and the average price earnings ratio on the S&P is close to 15 times as well. So if you take price earnings divided by growth, it's 1, a peg of 1. That's a good benchmark to use when investing. And if you want to ask me about it in class, I can look into financial models with you and explain that in more detail. Yeah. Okay, next up, Tregan wrote, hi, Chris. Hey, I'm very interested to know what's your investment analysis process? Yeah, so I do a very, very thorough analysis from a qualitative and a quantitative perspective. And let me actually show you an example of one of the many documents I provide my students, one of the many templates in my MBA degree program. So I tend to look at, let's see here. I look first at fundamentals, okay? Then I look at valuation. And then a distant third, I look at technical analysis, okay? So this presentation here, or this Excel document here kind of encapsulates that. Let me get my face off in the corner. Okay. So basically what I do, I'll show you first of all the output. Okay. So everything I look at, I like to distill into a one-page document. Okay. So right at the bottom here, and this is dummy data, and this is something that's provided to my MBA students for free, of course, in the MBA curriculum. I ask you 1,000 questions, and they all feed directly into this one pager. And so in this one pager, I have fundamentals. I also have valuation and technical analysis. Okay. And so when I hit print right here, what happens is you can either save it as a PDF or you can print it to paper. Okay. And it's basically a one pager that you send to anybody you're interested in getting a job with, for example. Enter your email address and all that stuff here as well. It feeds in. Or you can remove that. Now, what also goes here is a detailed report, 150-page report, okay? And I'll show you the inputs in a second. Another thing that comes out of this is a dashboard, okay? It's a very detailed dashboard as well. And again, this is dummy data here, but I show you a graphical representation of this company. This is Apple, for example, okay? And this is all based on data that you enter in, and all based on concepts that I teach you in my MBA degree program in a lot of detail. And down here we have the financials as well. Yeah, just dummy data. Now what I do is there's 100 steps, okay? So we look at qualitative research, okay? And then we look at quantitative research and then financial research as well. Okay, so qualitative, there's tons of steps here. Okay, the management team, company history, product services, catalysts, secular growth driver, target market, etc. All that stuff, okay? You enter in all this information. That's qualitative. Then down here we have quantitative, okay? And so I ask you to input a lot of things here as well. Total addressable market, market growth, market share, all that stuff. And by the way, every one of these tabs, you can click to watch a video of me explaining how to use that tab. Okay, so there's like 100 videos there. So you click here and I explain from scratch exactly how to think about vertical exposure, for example, there. In this case, we went to World Bank's website, etc. And let me go here and close this to save bandwidth. Okay. And then down here is financial research. Okay. And so right here, you put in all your inputs, stock details, guidance, revenue growth, EPS growth, all that stuff, whatever. And all this stuff will feed, as I showed you before, into that one pager and that detail report. This is one of many templates and tools I provide you with that I made myself in my MBA degree program. Yeah. And so that explains just a little bit of what my investment thesis or analysis process is like. I have another one for private companies, which is just as detailed, and many other ones as well. Yeah. Tons for options, hedge funds, portfolio management, you name it, and soon programming. And I got to nerd out, guys. Give me 1 second here. I want to show you the programming stuff that's coming to the curriculum in January. So the programming stuff, it's basically, I'll show you here. It's still a work in progress. Let me open up from the cloud this version here. Okay, so it's version 52. It'll take a second to download. There's macros in it as well, but it's got, here it goes, it's coming. And I'll enable macros. I'm teaching programming in Excel, and then we'll move on to Python, as I mentioned earlier, right? So this is just where I left off. I'm still working on it, okay? So basically, I've got different tracks here, okay, and a lot of chicken scratch notes for myself here. Settings and security, help videos as well. And again, this is still work in progress for designing dashboards, etc. Tons of templates, Microsoft Excel 101. I teach you the basics. I teach you every single formula in Excel as well. Okay. And then I also teach you Visual Basic here as well. And this is similar to those props I lifted up and showed you a little while ago today in the webcast. We start with the basics, how to record a macro, and then we move into the coding as well. Yeah. And this is all still, it's still in beta right now. I'm working on it. But I think you guys will thoroughly enjoy it. I use tons of props here as well. Yeah. And this is the pencil I showed you guys before. Okay. With my awful dad humor, which I won't repeat again. I have to. I'm a very small man when you meet me. Okay. I'll never say it again, I promise. All right. Next up, I've got Ishmael, who wrote here, "Hey, Chris, I hope you're doing well. Likewise. I have a plan of specializing in mineral economics, but currently I have 10 years experience in mining. Any tips on the ideal university for mineral economics? I know there's a lot of great ones in Canada that focus in this area. I don't know of the other ones right now. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I'm not an expert in this area at all. What you can do if you want to is you can look into who the biggest mineral experts are on the planet. To see if they have any Nobel Prizes and what university they went to. Or you can look at CEOs and entrepreneurs that run mineral-based companies and just go to their LinkedIn profile to see if they have a minerals-based degree as well. Yeah. And where from. Okay. All right. Eric wrote, "I'm 48. I'm 50. And I've yet to take up video game playing." Oh, you got to start, man. Like, turn me off and just please. Yeah. You wrote, "What are good games that might make you a better business person?" Yeah. And then you wrote, "Also, I thought of playing some factory building games." Yeah. A great game and actually my son, Andrew, so he's doing engineering at Berkeley, although he might switch into business. The way I found his passion was we were on vacation in Florida, and I had my laptop. And I said, "Hey, I'm playing this game, SimCity. You want to play with me?" And so he started playing with me, and that's how he found his passion. And SimCity is an amazing game to play, so you can get an understanding of how bonds work and how business works in general. It's incredible. So if you go to my YouTube channel, okay, let's go here. I'll show you the video I made on it. Give me 1 second. Let me go to Chris Haroun's channel here, and I'll show you how to learn about business by playing video games. All right, so let's go here. Am I doing that wrong, guys? I'm supposed to be able to search my channel right here, right? Ah. All right, doesn't seem to be working. I'll go here. I'll do Chris Haroun, SimCity. It'll just be a general Google search. Okay, use this video game to teach your kids business. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'll play this really quickly here. And all of us to learn about business. And I'm going to take a very quick break. Please don't go anywhere. Okay, and I'll maximize this. I'll be right back. The most funnest way for kids and all of us to learn about business and real estate and bonds is by playing my favorite video game of all time, SimCity. And my son Andrew actually just found his passion in life as we went on vacation, and I introduced him to SimCity on my Mac, and he wants to work in construction or architecture now. And I'll show you the game we set up in a second. It's a lot of fun. The beauty of playing SimCity is you get an appreciation for the three most important to keep in mind when doing when looking to invest in real estate. And those three things are as follows: location, location, and location. And I'm working on a complete real estate course coming out soon. Also, by playing SimCity, it introduces us to the concept of budgeting and debt financing through issuing bonds. It's a blast. Now, right here, we just got awarded a space station as well, which piqued Andrew's interest actually in space architecture as well. And you can actually set up, as you can see here, a bunch of different cities, and they trade with each other as well. So it introduces you to international trade. Yeah, sorry for the shaky camera here, but you can actually go through the entire city. And this came out in 2013, this product. I absolutely love it. Here's where you can budget, and here's where you can actually buy bonds, issue bonds. Okay, so it's pretty cool. And I'm certainly not managing a balanced budget there at all. So it's so much fun. Now, the version of SimCity I recommend is this version here I'm showing you that was released way back in 2013 by the Maxis subsidiary of Electronic Arts. And that's me bulldozing some opera house, I think, yeah. Now, Maxis was the best video game company, and EA bought the firm, and they destroyed the SimCity brand, and they actually shut down Maxis entirely.
All right.
Which is hard.
I'm back. Thank you for letting me take that break. And you guys can watch the rest of that video if you want to on my YouTube channel. It's a great game. Yeah. All right. Next up, I have got here a question from Omar Haroun. Chris, you said that relationships are more important than product knowledge. What if you're in a hyper-competitive market? I guess the reverse might be true. Do you consider social media to build this relation? I think so, but it's not as intimate. Like it's hard to get to know people like in a setting like this. I get to know my students a lot better in my gold and platinum program. I do one-on-ones, whatever. It's not a sales thing as well. Tomorrow we're basically sold out. I think doing it face-to-face is better than social media. And you can use Zoom as well, of course, which is basically the same thing. Yeah. Okay. Moving on to Fernando. And thank you for the support joining my channel. I see the trophy there. Thank you. You wrote, "Good morning, Chris. Great to finally attend your live workshop. It's great to have you." Thank you. You wrote, "You spoke about private wealth management earlier. Do you cover that career path in detail in your MBA?" Indirectly, I do, because we start off in the MBA program with networking aggressively and having the best LinkedIn profile ever and how to get a ton of informational meetings. And so private wealth management is all about relationships first and then financial knowledge second. Then we talk a lot in the program, obviously, about financial analysis, accounting, etc., investing from scratch. And if anybody has a background in finance and accounting, I want you to forget everything you've learned, because I'm going to teach you and rewire you completely, sound it out there, sorry, from scratch with a lot of props, etc. Yeah. Okay. All right. And Eileen wrote, "Is your MBA program full or part-time?" Yeah, no, it's always on your own terms, part-time. So the program that starts tomorrow it's every Friday. It's our 5th one-year class. Every Friday from 9 a.m. until 3 p.m. Pacific time. And you don't have to attend all classes live. And the way I set it up is I always think of myself humbly as your waiter. And this is where I proposed to my wife years ago. Long time ago. Wow. I've aged. She's not aged at all. But I think of myself as a waiter. Okay, when you go to a restaurant, you can look at the entire menu, but you just order 1 or 2 items. And so I expose you to all different types of job functions and different ways to run companies, etc. And you focus on what you're passionate about. Now, in the MBA program, there's 100 very short quizzes. They're pretty easy. In order to pass, if that's important to students, in order to pass, all you have to do is get over 50% on half of those short 100 quizzes. And I set it up that way because it's not fair to make you learn everything if you're not interested in certain things. So, for example, if you're not interested in learning how to sell or how to manage money, you shouldn't have to take those classes, right? So that's how I set it up. You have access to it forever as well. So you don't have to graduate in 1 year. You can graduate in 10 years, or you can graduate in 1 month by doing all the lessons, like binge watching it, for example, which some people do. Yeah. Okay, it's your MBA on your own terms. Yeah. And if you don't want to join the class live, you can always check out the silver program as well at HarounMBA.com. Yeah, thank you. Okay. All right. And you get access to all the lectures right away when you start as well. Yeah. Okay. All right. And there's a question here. Do you need any licenses to be in the private wealth management profession? No. Although some firms might require you to write the Series 7 before talking to clients. Yeah. Which basically you can study for within a couple of weeks. Yeah. And they'll pay for it as well. Okay. And Eric wrote, I hope the Otis elevators, which I talked about earlier, are safe. Swedish is associated with quality, but quality is often lacking in Chinese made products. Yeah. Yeah. That's right. IKEA is Swedish for common sense. All right. All right. Next up, Kennard wrote, hey, Chris, thanks for sharing your knowledge and experience. You're most welcome. If you're being interviewed for an operations management role and you were asked if you have any questions, what would you ask? Yeah. Oof. It's always tough. Yeah. Whenever you're being interviewed, it all depends on the level of the person that's interviewing you. So if it's somebody that's a couple levels above you, you can ask very difficult questions and they'll love it. If you ask challenging questions to somebody that's your level or slightly above, they might feel threatened. So the question I love to always ask, if it's a senior executive, is this. What is the most misunderstood aspect of your business model by customers and investors? They love that question. And they'll sit back and they'll say, oh, that's a great question. And they'll answer it and they'll love it because you're kind of challenging them. Yeah. If it's somebody that's your level and you want to give them a softball or easy pitch right down the middle, you can ask, what's a day in a life like in this company, and how should I think about how much value I can add from a team building perspective, right? And that's kind of a strength word I threw in there, team building. Yeah. You can ask them about the culture, a day in the life, that sort of thing. Yeah. Never, ever, ever ask how much money can you make. They'll mention that at the end. And I can tell you how to negotiate higher later if you're curious. Yeah. All right. And then Eileen wrote, thank you. I have to leave. Very informative and inspiring. Great to see you. And I hope you join us again. Thank you. Okay, next up, Jatan wrote, do you suggest taking a Securities Industry Essentials exam to an individual passionate to break into asset management? No, not at all. No, it's not really well known. If you want to take an exam, the only one I'd recommend is the CFA, that's Certified Financial Analyst designation. It'll take you 3 years to do it. And if you're going to do it, let me know because I'll teach you how to save 99% on the textbooks they make you buy. Yeah. Okay. And Charles wrote, hi, Chris, I have to leave at this time. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. I'm looking forward to it in day one. Day one, not one day. Yeah. I even have that website, day1notOneday.com. Okay, next up, House and Garden Projects wrote, hey, Chris, I play SimCity 4. However, I can't get it to play on Windows 10. Is there a newer version that works? Or can I do something to get my version to work? Sorry for the not business question. No, it's a great question. It should work on Windows 10. I've played it a lot on Windows 10 as well. You need to have at least 8 gigs of RAM, which you probably already have, right? 16 is even better. Download the new version. So what they do is every time there's a new operating system, like I saw with Mac recently as well, they have to tweak SimCity to work. So go to EA's website and see if you can download it there. Or what you can do is go to Steam. Okay, and that's where I get my games from. Go to Steam, just do a search on Steam, and you can install the Steam client and download it that way, and it should work. Yeah, if it doesn't, let me know, please. Yeah. All right, cool. And then Conrad wrote, thank you, makes a lot of sense. All right, cool. Well, I don't see any more questions. So instead of going to Zoom today, what I'm going to do is this. You keep typing your questions if you want. What I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you guys how to sell. And this will be fun. And whenever I see questions, I'll stop presenting and read your stuff here. Oh, here's a couple questions. Thanks for your answer on SimCity 4. You're welcome. Gamer for fun. Oh, I love that. GFF wrote. How you see YouTube as a career and starting a new YouTube channel in 2022 from a competition perspective, how do you see it? Yeah. So I think that YouTube, it's still early days. And YouTube is the only gold rush in history where it costs you nothing to make the product. And YouTube is also the only gold rush in history where you can get access to billions of potential customers right away for free. I still think it's early days, and I still think a decade from now we're all going to look back and say, darn it, I wish I'd created more YouTube content. And think of each little video you make as being like a coffee shop franchise that will earn dividends over time. Now, most of my videos I don't monetize. I just put it out there to share, right? But I recommend getting involved right now. And your name there is Gamer for Fun. So if you're passionate about gaming, you can always stream. Start on Twitch, of course, and then you can stream on Twitch and YouTube Live at the same time using OBS, StreamFlow, Wirecast, etc. And I teach how to use all those products as well. And I teach how to use Twitch in my MBA program. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Next up, Electronics Clinic wrote, hey, Chris, I'm starting your gold program tomorrow. Awesome. Thank you. But I'm concerned how the stock market is getting wiped out. Yeah. Do you still think there's money to be made in the stock market? There always is. I always love investing in broken companies, I love investing in broken stocks, but not broken companies. Let me explain that. So a broken stock is a stock that's massively oversold. The RSI is 20. And I explain that in my MBA program in a lot of detail. And it feels like you're catching a falling knife. And those are my favorite investments because no one else buys them. So you got to be a contrarian. If you're a contrarian, you'll do exceptionally well in the long run. And so there's always stocks that are massively oversold. And if you don't have time to roll up your sleeves and do the research, just put money every month or after every paycheck, every 2 weeks into VOO. Now, Wayne Gretzky, I got to have a hockey reference as a Canadian. Wayne Gretzky was very successful, and he said the reason he was humbly successful is not because he skates where the puck is, but rather because he skates where the puck is going to be. And by the same token, I want you to invest in stocks that people are going to like. If you invest in a stock that everybody loves and everybody owns already, it's not going to go much higher. And I want you to think long-term as well. Create a financial model and an in-depth research write-up, which I showed you in Excel earlier today, which I'll start teaching you starting tomorrow. I want you to think very, very long-term as well and invest for the long run. And I'll teach you how to approach investing every major asset class as well in the MBA program. Yeah, and nobody can time stock market peaks or bottoms. You get fooled by randomness. Tell me what Putin's going to do tomorrow, and maybe I'll tell you. And even then, I wouldn't know. Yeah. So you got to think longer term. Yeah. And we'll cover that in a lot of detail tomorrow. Now, if anybody is joining my program tomorrow, and you have, let's say you have financial difficulties, and you need your money back, you can always get your money back all the way up until October 30th. 100%. Yeah. Okay. All right, next up, Ruman wrote, hey, Chris, thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. You're most welcome. Thank you for being here. Could you please explain the relationship between the current DXY values and debt-to-GDP ratio in the United States? Yeah, I don't know what DXY means. Yeah. In terms of debt to GDP, it keeps rising in the United States materially, and it will always rise until investors don't want to buy U.S. debt anymore. And the way the United States economy was set up from day one, the founding fathers set it up so that they can get easy access to credit, right? And so the United States is not run like a company. Like a lot of people look at the United States economy and are like, oh my God, look how much debt they have. This company's going to go bankrupt. No. It'll go bankrupt when the rest of the world stops seeing the United States as a flight to quality. A lot of people say, but China owns a lot of U.S. bonds. If China stops buying U.S. debt, then the United States will go bankrupt. No. China would fold first, and here's why. Okay, and I'm being objective here. So China owns a lot of U.S. debt, and China's biggest customer is the United States in terms of exports. Okay, and so what you saw in 1989 with Tiananmen Square, when CNN by fluke had cameras there was riots. That was a one-off. If you see social unrest in China because of a massive slowdown in exports to the United States, everybody's a journalist now, and there'll be massive riots, right? And so the moral hazard is that, China is more dependent on the U.S. than vice versa. And so, and you have these people like Ray Dalio who are doubters saying it's the downfall of the United States economy. It's all relative. It's all relative. And U.S. is still a wonderful place for innovation. And please keep in mind that when I say the U.S., I'm not talking about American citizens. I'm talking about people from all over the world that start companies here. More than 50% of founders and engineers here in the San Francisco Bay Area were born overseas. So I don't think that we're going to see the downfall of the United States. Yeah. And I understand that debt to GDP is really, really high. I get it. And yes, it is worrisome as well. But nobody knows when this party's going to end. It's been like this for decades. Yeah. And you can't run a country like a business. It just doesn't work that way. Yeah. And I'm not saying what the United States is doing is fiscally responsible at all. It is irresponsible. But it matters when it matters. And that's a weird thing to say, I know. It matters when foreign governments stop buying U.S. debt. So what's a better investment than U.S. debt for foreign governments? It's all relative. It's all relative. It always has been. Yeah. Okay. And I know I ruffled some feathers there, but that's my honest opinion. Okay. All right. James said, why did you stop running your hedge fund and venture capital business to start teaching? Because I love teaching. I love helping people. And when I worked for other people over the years, during my annual review process, they would start by saying, Chris, you've done a great job, humbly. But, and this is always uncomfortable for my bosses, they would say, can you maybe spend a little bit less time helping people in different departments? And I would say, no, it's just the way I am. And so I've always loved to help people. Always. Always. Just the way I've been. Yeah. And I think if you make money your idol or your god, you'll never be happy. Do you really think billionaires are happier than us? No. They're not happy because they compare themselves to other billionaires and they always want more and more and more and more and more. And their kids are manic depressives as well. Because they don't know why people are their friends. They compete with their parents too to acquire more assets. Money can be the root of all evil. And that's not why we're here on this planet. We're not here to accumulate wealth. We're here to make this planet a better place by the time we leave it. And that's how I feel. And so this whole process of, the media and everybody worshiping people like Elon Musk makes me sick to my stomach. I mean, the guy has he's had like 5 or 6 wives. He spends no time with his kids. He's got 10 kids. He cheated with his best friend's wife, Sergey Brin, at Sergey Brin's house back last fall. Why do we worship this guy? Yes, he's doing wonderful things, in basically helping us to, explore space and Mars. Yes, I respect that. I don't respect the side of cheating and whatnot. And in business in general, I never trust somebody to cheat on their spouse. I don't have any sponsors. I can always speak my mind and be honest and open with everybody here. And the second you make money your idol or worship people because they make a lot of money is the second you go into a tailspin of depression. Never do it for the money. When it comes to your career, if you chase money, you'll lose your money and your dreams. But if you chase your dreams and you don't give a damn about the money, something wonderful happens. Your dreams come true and the money follows accidentally. But you got to tell yourself, I don't care what people think. And for me, I don't care. Like, I remember when I first started teaching, people are like friends of mine that worked in BC and hedge fund, they called me like, Chris, are you done with this teaching thing? Do you want to come back to work now? I'd say no. At first they think you're crazy. Then you get some success and you're a crazy genius. Then eventually you're just genius. I'm still in the crazy stage and I will be forever. But I don't want people to chase money. And I understand we need to have access to money to live. But how much can we eat? And the only reason you should look in your neighbor's bowl is to see if she or he has as much as you do, not to see if you have more. And that's the cancer of Western society too. And I want you all to read this great book by the Dalai Lama called The Art of Happiness. And he said the problem with Western society is this. We sacrifice our health for our entire lives in order to make money. And at the end of our lives, we sacrificed all of our money to maintain our health. And then we look back and we realized we never really lived to begin with. I want you all to chase your dreams. I want to help you find your passion career-wise. I don't want it just to be about money. Before you try to get a new job or change careers, before you think to yourself, how do I do this? I want you to ask yourself, why? Why do I want this? It better not be about the money, number one. And look, I get it. We all need money to survive. I understand that well. But I want you to chase with your heart first, and everything else will fall into place in the long run. And that's my passion and purpose. That's why I do what I do. Okay. All right. And give me 1 second. Looks like a bunch more questions came. Okay. I won't do the. I was gonna start with this here and give you guys a presentation. I always have things ready just in case. I was going to talk about sales and workbooks and all that stuff and teach you. We'll do this another week though. Yeah. But I'm that guy that used to show up to presentations with 2 laptops in case one went down. Yeah. And I remember when I first started doing my weekly webcast, there was no questions and I was so scared. So I'd always have something to talk about. Yeah. All right, let me get to your questions though. That's why we're here. All right, give me 1 second. All right. All right, hold on a second. All right, next up, Gamer for Fun, GFF, wrote, I'm from India, a big fan of yours. Thank you. Can you tell me a good place or way to learn editing? Yeah. So we edit in Final Cut Pro, which is what I use. And then Matt Lacousse, who works with me, he uses Adobe Premiere Pro. I prefer to use Final Cut. And what you can do is you can get a special keyboard as well for Final Cut, which I use sometimes. And then when you get more advanced, you can use something like this for color coding and color grading, which I use sometimes as well. It's called a loop deck. Now, the best way to get started is just to play around, import a video, and try to edit it. And then if you can't figure it out, go right to YouTube. That's it. And if you have a Mac, I recommend start with iMovie. It's free. It's on your computer anyway when you buy it. And if you have a Mac and you used iMovie for a while and you want something higher end, try Final Cut Pro. Okay, it's the best. I freaking love it. And if you don't have a Mac, you'll use Adobe Premiere Pro, which is a pain in the neck to use. But just go to YouTube every time you can't figure something out. Yeah, and they have good tutorials as well with Premiere Pro when you download it. Yeah. All right, next, and I teach all that stuff too in my MBA program. Next up, Pratham wrote, SABI stock market regulators are restricting hedge funds in India. There is some other way to start a hedge fund in India. Yeah, I don't know much about the environment in general. I know that many countries, most countries actually, you can't invest in hedge funds unless you're an accredited investor, meaning you have a liquid net worth of $1 million or more. And what happens is when you start a hedge fund, you have to get people to fill out what are called subdocs or subscription documents. And they have to answer questions like their liquid net worth, anti-money laundering questions, etc. Yeah. But talk to a securities lawyer always, yeah. And my lawyer was Jim Grant from the Securities Law Group here in the Bay Area. He's great. And he helped me with my offshore fund as well. Okay. All right, next up, Michelle from Texas, who starts with us tomorrow, wrote, I so appreciate your positive perspective. This is why I signed up. Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm looking forward to working with you as well. Okay, moving on to Dane. Dane, first time I see you on the call. Welcome. Would love to see you again as well. Dane wrote, my grandson just started in computer science at Berkeley. Oh, cool. Any way we could get him together with your son also just starting there? Yeah, for sure, dude. Yeah, definitely. Send me an email to support@harounventures.com. That's great, a full scholarship. That's incredible. Yeah, it's a great school. Yeah, but I told Andrew, I said, Andrew, you cannot lean too far to the left if you go to school there, right? I'm not saying if I'm a Democrat or Republican there, okay? I'm just saying, yeah. Okay. And Electronics Clinic said, I will never buy a Tesla car. Yeah, we finally got ours. It took 8 million years to order it. Yeah, but we finally got it. Yeah. And my new thing now is I'm into e-bikes. I got a couple of e-bikes as well, battery operated. I love it. So fun. Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. And then Eric wrote about Falun Gong practitioners arrested, taken to labor camps. Yeah, and I don't want to read the rest of that. Sorry. That is unfortunate. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Roberto wrote, Chris, is your MBA program only offered once per year? No, I'm doing it more often now. And so the class that starts tomorrow is the last class offered this year. It's a 1-year program. I'll do another one at some point next year as well. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Electronics Clinic wrote, hey, Chris, what are your thoughts on the very strong dollar compared to other currencies that are on free fall? Is this a good time to leverage the strong dollar and buy real estate overseas? Yeah, if you're a long-term focused investor, absolutely, I would think. Yeah. I stopped buying real estate recently, though. I bought a lot of real estate in Canada. I've stopped now. Real estate prices have been falling, and they'll continue to fall. The 30-year fixed rate in the mortgage is now 6.7%. It's the highest it's been since 2007. As interest rates rise and the 30-year fixed rate increases, obviously the price of real estate will go down quite a bit, actually. Yeah. So I'm a little bit careful right now. In terms of my thoughts on the U.S. dollar in general, look, the United States is always a flight to quality. Yeah, and I know people get upset about that. And you can do a search on my YouTube channel on the U.S. dollar and how I said in 2020, 2021, why it won't crash. And I had to turn off comments because oh my God, the hate comments I got. But humbly, I was right. The U.S. dollar is a flight to quality. In 2008, when the U.S. economy created the financial crisis, when we were within 24 hours of bank machines not working, the U.S. dollar went up because of the flight to quality. Kind of like gold went up. So I think that the United States is a very stable economy. And I've said for many years that the United States is the last company on the planet, so to speak, that would ever go bankrupt. And every investment class and every currency in every country is all relative. The value of one is relative to the value of the other. And if people have more confidence in one economy versus another, they'll put more money into that one that one country versus another. And so, but to state the obvious, the United States government is aggressively raising interest rates, more so than many other countries. And so what happens is when countries raise interest rates, obviously you make more money by investing in that currency because interest rates are higher. And so China, for example, the Chinese yuan, the Chinese government has been cutting interest rates because of their real estate crisis. They have to, otherwise there'll be social unrest. As a result, the United States dollar is at a record high versus the Chinese yuan at 1 per 7.21. The United States government is more aggressively raising interest rates than a lot of other first world countries as well. And so if interest rates in the U.S. go up relative to other countries, then of course that currency, the United States dollar, will go up relative to others. It's all relative. Everything is relative in investing. Yeah. And I am a global citizen, and please don't get me wrong and think that I'm pro USA and down with the rest of the world. I'm not at all. Okay, I'm not. Now I have to poke fun of America somehow. Okay, here I go. Just to level things off. In America, the way they screw in a light bulb is they hold it up and the whole world spins around. Okay, there. So if anybody, there you go. I made fun of America too. Okay, but I proudly live here as well. Yeah, and I'm proudly Canadian. I'm proudly a global citizen. Right now, everybody hates me. Yeah, just kidding. Okay. Okay. And then our Lakshya wrote, hello, sir. Chris, please. How do you invest in the stock market? Yeah. In my MBA program, I explain a lot of detail. It's hard for me to explain it all in one comment here. If you go earlier in this video, I showed a big 100-step Excel template that I provide as one of the many tools to my MBA students on how to invest. Okay, Eric wrote, why is there an accredited investor rule? Thank you for the question. Yeah. So the way it works is because hedge funds are not really regulated by the government, and as a way to protect investors from losing a lot of money, governments will only allow you to invest in hedge funds or private equity firms or venture capital firms if you meet certain criteria, because these are risky investments, and it's the right decision too. And so as a result, you have to be accredited, meaning you have to have a liquid net worth of over $1 million, et cetera. So the governments, what they do is governments have noble intentions too. Look, I criticize governments all the time, but the role of governments is to protect consumers, right, from a business perspective. And that's why I respect the SEC for what they've done in terms of making companies disclose all this information, so the chance of you, the consumer, getting screwed goes down materially. And I think that the SEC needs to have loose regulation on some cryptocurrencies, because a lot of people are getting scammed. Yeah. Okay. All right, give me 1 second here. All right. Okay. Yeah, and our Lakshya wrote, Sir, Chris, I bought my MBA course, but Excel is not supporting a mobile. No. The Excel downloads I have only work on Windows and Mac desktops, not mobile. So if you want, you can request your money back. Send an email to support@harounventures.com, and I'll personally refund you, as long as you bought it within 30 days. Thank you. Okay. And Pratham wrote, what is the best way to learn trading? Yeah. So I don't recommend learning trading, but if you want, just do a search on my YouTube channel on technical analysis, and there's a 20-minute session I explain that with. And I talk about that more detail in my MBA stuff too. Yeah. Okay. Eric wrote, can Germany, Switzerland, et cetera, also be a flight to quality? Switzerland is more insulated, always has been. So I think, relatively speaking, yes. Germany, it's kind of tough, just given the proximity to you know who, and also given the fact that Gazprom, Lukoil kind of decides the fate of Germany just through the pipelines. Yeah. Okay. Okay, and Imar wrote, that was a good joke about Americans. Good. Now everybody hates me, but that's okay. I love all of you. Yeah. And I turn the other cheek. And Michelle, I know you love that. Okay. All right, next up, Ganu says hello. How are you? Okay. Next up, SK wrote, hi, Mr. Haroun. How are you? And my name, by the way, it rhymes with baboon. That way you'll never forget it. And I've been out to dinner before when I was a kid, and they used to page us. They would say, heroin, party of six, heroin, party of six. Baboon. Now you never forget. Yeah. SK wrote, hi, Mr. Haroun. I teach basic finance and entrepreneurship in college. Very cool. It's fun to teach, mostly conceptual. Your videos are really helpful when I have to explain some global phenomenon or practical aspects. Thank you. I appreciate that. And then you wrote, what would you suggest to academics to make these subjects more practical, to make learning more holistic? Yeah. So number one, I like the case study methodology where you teach based on real life events. And so if you go to my YouTube channel and do a search for Wall Street Pro Reacts To, I'm doing a series based on real movies, movies based on real events. And I teach based on that. So anytime you can use movies to teach based on real events to make it edutaining works. And what I used to teach in class during the evenings at universities, that's how I taught. It's very different than the way I teach now. Yeah. Also, I recommend using a lot of props as well, because students are always very visual. Get them involved with props. Explain, supply and demand using props as well, or assets equaling liabilities plus equity. Bring in props like scales. And I have a beautiful old scale I bought from India over eBay. I use in my MBA program. But props work really well. Yeah. Okay. And then Pratham wrote, what are your thoughts on the Indian economy? I absolutely love the Indian economy. The world's largest democracy. America's best friend longer term. Freedom. I love it. I love the fact also that Apple is moving a lot of its production, mobile phones, from China to India. It makes a hell of a lot of sense in the long run. I'm a massive fan of India longer term. Yeah, and I've done a lot of investing in the economy there, not just Satyam, Wipro, Infosys, tech companies, but also Compton and Greaves, the infrastructure side, all the Tatas, etc. I'm a huge fan. I've done a ton of research in India. I think it's one of the best global markets to invest in, and a lot of the companies that where I invested in venture capital perspective, we had offices in India as well from a tech perspective. Yeah, the 5 IITs in India are like 10x better than MIT here, and Berkeley too. I love it. Big fan. Although you don't have to go to IIT to be successful. You can go anywhere or nowhere. Okay. Fernando wrote, thank you for the answer earlier. You're most welcome. Can you talk a little bit more about the MBA program? How long is each section? Is the gold version the same as silver, except we watch it with you for questions? Yeah. So basically, the best way to explain this, and I won't spend too much time on this, I've talked about it before. Let me make my face a little bit smaller in the corner here. Ooh, it could make it smaller. All right, so let's go here to, and I'll do this real quick. Okay. So if you scroll down my homepage, there's 3 different MBA programs. Okay, silver, gold, platinum. Silver is 300 hours. It's like Netflix. You don't get access to me. You can just watch it live or recorded, and you have access forever to 300 hours. And I new stuff I had, you'll get there as well. It might be over 400 hours now. I'm not sure. But the electives I add, you'll always get for free. Gold is the same thing, except you get 200 hours of live Q&A with me, and I hold you all accountable, or you can hold yourselves accountable by taking the gold program, because I do teach it live by playing lessons and then taking Q&A. That's 200 hours of Q&A every Friday for 1 year. Platinum is the same thing as gold, except you get 3 hours of one-on-one time as well. And you can always click here to, if you click on here, you'll see what the curriculum is. And you can always do a search after you click that button on any topic, and you'll see what's included. Everything is included, or a lot of stuff at least. Yeah. Okay. Okay, and somebody just wrote India a number of different times. Okay. Adil wrote, do you agree with Professor Jeremy Siegel from Wharton? Yeah. Saying the Fed is being overly aggressive. No, I don't. I think the Federal Reserve has to raise interest rates until prices start coming down. Now, we are seeing housing prices come down materially, so what the Fed is doing is working. In fact, lumber prices have fallen 70% over the past couple of months or so off the recent highs, right? And that's an indication that these rate hikes are working. And once we see the price of other products falling as well, like groceries, like every time I buy something on Amazon, it feels like the price goes up 10% every week now. Once we start all noticing that all prices of all major products we purchase are going down, then I think the Fed can stop cutting rates or stop raising rates. The problem is this. If you have hyperinflation, you don't have an economy. After World War I in Germany, they basically had hyperinflation. You had to take a whole wheelbarrow full of Deutschmarks in the market to buy a loaf of bread. In the early 1980s, Paul Volcker, who's the head of the Federal Reserve, God bless him, passed away. He had to raise interest rates to 20% in order to stop inflation of close to 20%. It's the right call. It's painful, but it has to be done. Otherwise, you don't have an economy. Otherwise, you end up like Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe in September 2008, they had daily inflation of 98%. You have to. And once you start noticing that prices are coming down, then you can start cutting rates or stop raising them. You have to. Yeah. But look, and I'm going to shut this door here. The crows make a lot of noise. And I gotta wrap this up in a second. Yeah. But look, the United States government raising interest rates and the US dollar going up, it's hurting a lot of other countries. Don't get mad at the US. Get really mad at Putin. Putin started all this. If it weren't for Putin, we would have had a soft landing. But what he started doing in February of this year, which is the start of a multi-decade war, Cold War Part 2, has really screwed the global economy, and the loss of life has been brutal. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this webcast, the economic impact is $2 trillion, or it will be by early 2023. So if we have somebody to get mad at, it should be Putin. Not the Russian people, but Putin. Yeah. Okay. All right, guys, I know there's a bunch more questions. I do have to wrap up this call in a second. If you're in my gold and platinum MBA program, you guys know you can join you can join office hours starting at 11:20 today. It's 2 hours. For those of you that start tomorrow, please don't join today because I want to do orientation with you guys tomorrow, and you can start joining next week. Yeah. And for those of you, my silver MBA, I have a 1 hour call I do every single Thursday, which is from 10 a.m. in 4 minutes my time, 10 a.m. until 11 a.m. my time. And the way to get access to that for silver students only is to go to the first lecture in the silver curriculum and click on the link. Yeah. Okay. All right. And then Michelle wrote here, and I'm just going to go through a couple questions here at the end. I won't be able to answer them all, I'm so sorry, but save them for next time. Michelle wrote, haha, I'm from Detroit originally. Turning that cheek is hard sometimes. Oh, I didn't know that. Let me know if you're a Tigers fan. Yeah. Because you broke my heart, man. 1987, I cried. I was 15. I remember that well. The Toronto Blue Jays, we were up by 6 games at the end of 1987 on the Tigers. And you guys, and we had 7 games left to play against the Tigers. You guys won all 7 of them. It was a collapse. And this was the outfield we had. Jesse Barfield, Lloyd Mosby, George Bell. And you guys broke my heart. You guys won the pennant. Yeah. I did tear up. I remember I was 15 years old in 1987. Yeah. Yeah. All right, cool. All right, I'm going to wrap it up right here, guys. Again, I see there's a lot more questions. Please ask me during office hours if you're gold, platinum, or silver, if you have additional questions, or you can ask me next week. And for those that are starting with me tomorrow in the fifth annual 1-year MBA program, the golden and platinum class, I'm looking forward to working with you. It's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. For those of you not in my MBA program, God bless you all as well. And I'll see you next week and every single week. Check out my Wolf of Wall Street video, please, on my YouTube channel. And God bless you. And as always, I end my weekly call with this inspiring video I licensed from the Silicon Valley Historical Association. It's a short interview that will change your life with Steve Jobs. Thank you all.
When you grow up, you tend to get told that the world is the way it is, and your life is just to live your life inside the world, try not to bash into the walls too much, try to have a nice family life, have fun, save a little money. But life, that's a very limited life. Life can be much broader once you discover one simple fact, and that is everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you. And you can change it. You can influence it. You can build your own things that other people can use. And the minute that you understand that you can poke life and actually something will, if you push in, something will pop out the other side, that you can change it, you can mold it. That's maybe the most important thing, is to shake off this erroneous notion that life is there and you're just going to live in it, versus embrace it, change it, improve it, make your mark upon it. I think that's very important. And however you learn that, once you learn it, you'll want to change life and make it better, because it's kind of messed up in a lot of ways. Once you learn that, you'll never be the same again.